This is an overdue message in many ways to all of you guys involved in rugby in Ghana. You may have heard that a little while ago, Africa Rugby scrapped the Silver Cup and the Gold Cup for 2019, leaving a lot of us in a little bit of a quagmire. What do? Most of you guys have been preparing for the Silver Cup for the last several months. Training camps, getting yourselves in order. Not to mention we the administrators in terms of costs, overheads, to support the efforts to make sure that we try and replicate what we did in the Bronze Cup. But the fact of the matter is that it's over, and we have to plan to see where we go from this next. It's tough for some of us. I know my co-president, especially in Nigeria, who was going to host the event, is suffering because obviously there are sponsors and plans, preparations that he's made, which he can't reverse. The imagery and the optics for himself are not good. The imagery and the optics for ourselves is not exactly the best either. Not to mention the phenomenal amounts of cash and monies and goodwill that have been affected by this. But the fact of the matter is that life goes on. And you know the way that we've run rugby in Ghana over the last 4 years is to have a parallel program with that of our governing body, i.e. the way we develop, the way we train, the way we play, who we compete against, so that when they're ready, we're ready to join, if I can put it like that. For those of you who are already boarding flights this week from different parts of the world, I don't think all is lost. We have the President's Cup, which we're playing, I think, on Saturday the 4th, and I'm sure that Rianne will correct me if I'm wrong, against Nigeria in Ghana. And then it is that we're playing another very difficult match against the Ivory Coast on the 11th in Cape Coast. These are two matches of the highest order, and I think it lets us know where we stand. Don't forget, the players in Ghana, in my view, are in extraordinary shape. We have 8, 9, 10, 12 of them who have really dedicated the last 6 months very, very seriously to the game of rugby, training, skill sets, fitness, conditioning, which is so important. So we can't stop that because of what's happened. We are hoping in June to continue with our games. We will have a return match. We're in Lagos with Nigeria as part of the President's Cup, like the Bledisloe Cup. And then we are planning actually for a series of internationals, which may actually be even tougher than where we would have gone with the Silver Cup. So all is not lost. I do need to give an explanation for what is going on. As you know, Africa Rugby now has new leadership. My friend Khalid Babu is now the president. Andrew Wu is now the vice president. The other internal structures essentially are the same. The marvelous Coralie is still the general manager, and Steph Nell is the representative from World Rugby. We have our own friends, Charles and Adama, who are helping us here in West Africa. So the internal structures are the same. The fact of the matter is that when you have new leadership, you have a new vision, a new way forward. And truth be told, the new management has come in, the new presidency has come in and has found that the plans and the way that was going before did not necessarily best serve the future. The coffers are low, so it's difficult to honor these competitions. But more importantly than that is the fact that President Babu and his new team are looking at a more equitable way of countries being able to enter in for the World Cup. So 2023 is the next. The program that he and his team are putting in place says, look, we shouldn't have to go through the 16 ranked teams, of which Ghana is one of the 16 ranked teams in Africa, should not have to play at a lower level and not be able to qualify for the World Cup. So who knows what's going to happen? Probably something like a Nations Cup, like you have in football, something else, which means that we have 2019 as a year of disruption. But very soon thereafter, we're going to kick in with a competition which is more equitable. It might mean that Ghana plays Zimbabwe or Kenya or Uganda, one of the more higher ranked teams, en route to trying to get to the World Cup. So there's always a downside, there's an upside. And I think the problem for African rugby is how does it find equity? You know, They think there should be equity across the continent. Africa is so large and diverse. North Africans are different from West, and West from East, and East from South. And the guys in the middle also have their challenges. And Africa, as I said recently in meetings with the president of World Rugby and the chief executive, Brett Gosper, is Africa is massive. You know, you can talk about the problems facing European rugby, but it's very easy within 2 or 3 hours to get to a destination. Africa can be a day. You know, what is good for Eastern Africa, like, for example, Emirates flying backwards and forwards. We then lack connectivity from West Africa going into parts of North Africa and that sort of thing. Then you have 1 or 2 countries like Mauritius and Madagascar, Lesotho, who may also have travel difficulties getting in for competition. So they really have to work a format that makes sense to them. I've pioneered, as most of you know, for the last 3 years, the West Africa Super Cup, which I shall be pursuing very rigorously. So you'll see many things will change over the next 12 months, where we have a club competition in West Africa, my brother in Nigeria, the president, Kelly. I will try and co-opt President Tano in Ivory Coast. We have Modeste in Togo, a few countries, and we'll have an inaugural. So we take 1 team out of the league, whoever the winner was last year, 2 teams in bigger countries, maybe like Nigeria and like Ivory Coast. Togolese will probably be a national team type of setup. And we will start a Super Cup so that we have competitive rugby. We have to move to a way where we look at our own development of an elite rugby setup, a group of players who are not going to moan and complain, who are going to train and understand there are huge hopes and opportunities to reach HSBC Sevens, to get to the World Cup, and we can only do that by playing competitively regularly. I have been speaking to Roland in Burkina, and I'll be putting her in touch with Rafatu soon, so we have a ladies' circuit at the same time, simultaneously with the men. We have to drive these things ourselves and have the governing bodies as well, then hopefully joining us and then perhaps getting ahead of us. This will not interfere in any way with any continental competitions they have, but it'll up the ante. Look, I'm in Europe and I attended the meeting with the president of World Rugby and the president of Rugby Europe and the others. Fascinating to learn that the Six Nations is actually owned by the Six Nations and not by World Rugby. There's so much that we can do, and we have to drive that in a certain direction rather than simply waiting to see where we go with our governing body. So, guys, this week is massively expensive for me in a personal note. You don't want to know how much, but it is a massive 5-figure sum. But we have to go ahead. And I say to the diasporans on their way back this week, next week, welcome to Ghana. Have a great time. Muck in. We'll change the arrangements a bit. No fancy hotels. Muck in with one another. Let's get that great team spirit and the bonding to go. I know Hamza will be leading the way. Alex is leading the way in Ghana. Hakeem has been an extraordinary team manager. Dallas, all of you know, is fantastic. And look, we're blessed to be overseen by Stuart and the extraordinary Colin. I always say that because they are 2 consummate professionals who Ghana has no right to really have at this particular moment in time. So, guys, you know what rugby is about. Lots of great things, lots of nonsense. But at the end of the day, if you love the game, we stick in there and we try and make it work. We'll get greater clarification, I believe, this week or next week from World Rugby. And from Africa Rugby, let me correct myself, who are meeting with representatives of World Rugby tomorrow in Cape Town. And I should have been there. But, you know, the South Africans don't realize the importance of visa on arrival for fellow African passport holders, even though we do it in Ghana. One day they'll catch up with the rest of us. For the time being, let's leave them where they are. Guys, rugby, that's what it's all about. It's about yourselves. So I hope you enjoy yourselves. We come together and we knuckle down and show that we've taken the game of rugby to another level. Thank you.